My BF and roommate planned a surprise that turned out to be baby supplies. I never thought I would find myself sharing such a bewildering experience. But here I am, ready to spill the details of a Valentine's Day surprise that turned into a shocking revelation. It all started when I, a 24-year-old woman, found myself in a complicated living situation with my roommate, Jackie, who is 25. We had been living together for 3 years, and while we weren't the closest friends, we had managed to coexist peacefully. Until recently. Jackie had just discovered she was pregnant, and things took a turn for the worse. She was uncertain about the father's identity, and understandably, her emotions were all over the place. This led to a series of arguments, with Jackie suggesting that I either move out or take up residence in the living room until I could afford to leave. It was a tense situation, and I was feeling the weight of it all. Fast forward to Valentine's Day. My boyfriend Jaden, who is 25, had planned a special evening for us. We had agreed to exchange gifts at my apartment before heading out for dinner and a movie. Earlier that week, I had come home from work early and caught Jaden in a peculiar situation. He was at our apartment, which was unusual since he lived on the opposite side of town. When I asked him what he was doing there, Jackie popped out and exclaimed, "Oh my God, we didn't ruin the surprise, did we?" I was completely taken aback and had no idea what she meant. It turned out that Jaden had a big gift for me that he couldn't hide in his own studio apartment, so he had stashed it at ours. I laughed it off, thinking it was sweet of him to go through the trouble. Little did I know, this surprise was about to take a very unexpected turn. On Valentine's Day, a moment arrived for us to exchange gifts. I was bubbling with excitement and couldn't wait to give Jaden his presents, a pair of Jordans he had been eyeing, along with a gaming headset and monitor. He was thrilled, and I was eager to see what he had picked out for me. When I opened my gift, it was a necklace from Pandora. While I appreciated the thought, I couldn't help but notice that it wasn't exactly the extravagant gift I had anticipated. After some research, I discovered the necklace was only worth about $25, and he had even bought the chain separately for $10. There was an awkward silence as I waited for the big reveal, the surprise gift he had hidden in Jackie's room. I jokingly mentioned the large Amazon box that was still taped up in her room, assuming that was my gift. Jaden laughed it off, claiming it was a gaming chair that had been sent to him by mistake. But something didn't sit right with me. I could tell he was lying. Curiosity got the better of me, and I walked into Jackie's room, asking her if she knew what was in that box. Caught off guard, she hesitated before saying it was my Valentine's Day gift. I insisted we open it, and as I tore through the tape, my heart raced. What I found inside was not a gaming chair, but an assortment of baby clothes, bottles, diapers, everything one might need for a newborn. It was a shocking sight, and I felt my world tilt on its axis. I turned to Jaden, who was now standing in the doorway looking guilty. Confusion washed over me as I asked, "What is this? Why would you give her all this stuff?" The room was thick with tension, and I could see the panic in their eyes. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, Jaden blurted out, "This isn't working. I think we need to talk." In that moment, I felt utterly lost. The surprise I had anticipated turned into a revelation that shattered my understanding of my relationship and my living situation. I was left standing there, grappling with the reality that my boyfriend and my roommate were entangled in a way I never expected. As I processed the chaos unfolding around me, I realized that this Valentine's Day would forever be etched in my memory, not for the love I had hoped to celebrate, but for the betrayal that had come to light. I never thought I would find myself in a situation like this, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. It all started when I discovered that my boyfriend, Jaden, and my roommate, Jackie, had been hiding something from me, something that would change everything. One day, I confronted Jaden about a series of strange events. He had been acting distant, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When I asked him why he had been spending time with Jackie, he simply shrugged it off. But my gut told me there was more to the story. I decided to dig deeper, and what I found was beyond my worst fears. After a tense exchange, Jackie finally revealed the truth. Jaden was the father of her baby. I was in shock. I had trusted both of them completely, and now I felt utterly betrayed. I didn't have the words to express my feelings. All I could manage was a cold, hope it was worth it, before retreating to my room, feeling like my world had just crumbled around me. As I tried to process the betrayal, I noticed that Jackie had packed up her things and left. I was left alone, grappling with the reality of what had just happened. My phone buzzed with notifications, and to my horror, I found myself added to a group chat with Jackie, Jaden, my stepsister, and my stepmother. They were all discussing how Jaden had ended our relationship because he wanted someone more secure, a term that felt like a slap in the face. I had been paying 70% of the rent for the past year, while Jackie struggled to keep a job. Secure? More like a headache? The messages kept coming, with everyone suggesting that Jaden and Jackie deserved to be happy together, and that my father would help me find a new place so they could start their family. I was furious. I couldn't believe my stepmother was siding with them, and I felt like I was being pushed out of my own life. I decided to leave the group chat, feeling overwhelmed and betrayed. It was now Tuesday, and I hadn't heard from Jackie, Jaden, or my stepmother since that day. Part of me wanted to reach out to my dad, knowing he probably didn't have the full story. But I hesitated, unsure of how to approach him after everything that had happened. In the midst of this chaos, I reached out to my mom. We hadn't been the closest since my parents divorced, but she was fully supportive and planned to come down that weekend to help me talk to my dad. I felt a sense of relief, knowing I wouldn't have to face this alone. As I navigated through the fallout, I couldn't help but wonder about the dynamics of my family. Jackie had been like a sister to me, and my stepmother had always been close to her. It felt like history was repeating itself, as my stepmother had a past of her own that mirrored this betrayal. I was determined not to let them twist the narrative in their favor. I started looking into my lease and my options. I was determined to pay only my portion of the rent and to find a new place. I contacted my landlord to discuss the situation, and it became clear that Jackie had been planning this for a while, even reaching out to inform him that I would be moving out at the end of our lease. The betrayal cut even deeper. With my mom by my side, I was ready to confront my dad and reveal the truth about what had happened. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to reclaim my narrative and stand up for myself. I wouldn't let Jackie and Jaden dictate my future or my happiness. This was my chance to take control and move forward, no matter how difficult the road ahead might be. It all started when I discovered that my roommate Jackie was pregnant with my boyfriend's baby. Yes, you heard that right. My boyfriend Jaden and Jackie had been involved in a way that turned my world upside down. To give you a bit of context, my family dynamics are already complicated. My dad had an affair with my stepmom while still married to my mom, which led to a whole new set of relationships that I never asked for. My mom, who lives a few hours away, has always been my rock, and my little brother has been my support system through this mess. When I first learned about Jackie's pregnancy, she claimed to be 10 weeks along. However, after some digging, it became clear that she might actually be much further along, 20 weeks according to some, or even 25 weeks according to my stepmom. It felt like I was caught in a web of lies, and I couldn't help but feel betrayed. In the midst of all this chaos, I decided it might be best for me to move, even if it meant just relocating to another building. I didn't want Jackie and Jaden knowing my exact whereabouts. The situation escalated when I found out that Jaden had broken some of my gaming equipment. I confronted him through a mutual friend, and when I saw the damage, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I sold the damaged items online and managed to recoup my losses. But that only fueled their anger. They came banging on my door, demanding to know where their items were, claiming they were worth much more than I had sold them for. But honestly, I just wanted to move on and get my life back on track. I kept the essentials, like the car seat and baby supplies, knowing they would be necessary when the baby arrived. A friend even joked about re-gifting them to Jackie at her baby shower, and I couldn't help but laugh at the thought. As the days went by, I realized Jackie was struggling financially. She was behind on her car payments, and I had been helping her out, but I decided enough was enough. I stopped offering my support, especially after she tried to charge my card without my permission. It felt like she was trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage, and I wasn't having it. Then there was the matter of my dad. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, but I felt it was time to confront him about everything. I invited him to dinner at a place that held fond memories from my childhood, hoping for an honest conversation. I didn't inform him that my mom would be there, but I did request that my stepmom stay away. I needed to talk to him without distractions. When he arrived, he brought my stepmom along anyway, which was frustrating. The conversation I had hoped for turned into a tense encounter, with my stepmom making snide comments. It was clear that my family was divided, and I was caught in the middle of it all. Since my last post, I've faced a barrage of insults from both Jackie and my stepsister. They've even made posts about me online, claiming that my brother and I just didn't make the cut in the family. It's been overwhelming, but I'm determined to stand my ground. I'm ready to move on from this chapter of my life, knowing that I deserve better. As I navigate this complicated web of relationships, I'm learning to prioritize my own well-being. I'm hopeful that with my mom's support and my brother by my side, I can find a way to reclaim my life and move forward. After all, I've realized that I don't need to be tied to people who don't respect me or my boundaries. I'm ready for a fresh start, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. It all started when my boyfriend and roommate, Jaden, and his girlfriend, Jackie, decided to throw a surprise for me. I had no idea what to expect, but when I walked into the room and saw baby supplies, my heart sank. It felt like an ambush, especially since my mom was there too. I ignored her presence and turned to my dad, relieved he could make it. But I knew we needed to discuss my living situation with Jackie. Before I could even get into the details, my dad launched into a tirade about how unfairly I had been treating Jackie. He claimed I had been mean to her, spouting off comments that I suspected my stepmom and stepsister had fed him. Frustrated, I decided it was time to lay everything out on the table. I recounted the events from Valentine's Day to the present, and at first, my dad sat in silence, seemingly processing everything. Meanwhile, my stepmom tried to interject, but my mom wasn't having any of it. When my dad finally excused himself to the bathroom, he was gone for about 30 minutes. During that time, my mom unleashed her fury on my stepmom, not just about my situation, but also about the divorce. She made it clear that she wouldn't let my stepmom ruin my life like she had done to hers. I had never seen my mom so passionate before. It was a side of her I hadn't witnessed even during the divorce. My stepmom, on the other hand, just wouldn't stop talking, acting like she had won some sort of battle by marrying my dad and having kids with him. When my dad returned, his eyes were red, and I could tell he had been crying. He hugged me tightly and apologized, but my stepmom interrupted, saying, "Sorry for what? Your daughter has a lot of growing up to do." That was when my mom told her to be quiet, and I could feel the tension in the room. My dad expressed disbelief that all of this had been happening right under his nose and wished I had reached out sooner. The truth was, I had tried calling and texting him multiple times, but he didn't respond until I insisted on a meeting, despite my request for it to just be the two of us. That was Saturday morning. After that, I didn't hear from my dad or stepmom. Later that night, my mom came over to my apartment. She had always been good with finances, so we worked out my budget and started looking for apartments closer to my job. Some people wondered why I didn't just move in with my mom, but she lived in a rural area with her partner, and I couldn't afford to lose my job or disrupt my online schooling. We dropped it off at Jaden's apartment without knocking. My mom just left the box at the door, knocked, and walked away. Meanwhile, our landlord conducted an inspection, and everything was fine on my end. Unfortunately, Jackie failed to provide pay stubs or necessary paperwork and had completely ghosted the landlord, even blocking their number. They were in the process of evicting her. My mom's partner generously offered to pay off the rest of my lease, which was a huge relief. But then Monday morning brought unexpected news. It turned out my stepmom had paid to have Jackie's name removed from the lease before she could be evicted, wanting to give her a clean start with her baby. To make matters worse, my dad agreed to co-sign for a 2-bedroom apartment for Jackie and Jaden. My dad made 6 times the rent, and Jaden only made 2 times, so with my dad co-signing, it all seemed to work out financially. I wasn't thrilled about how everything unfolded, but in my mind, all I could think was that I wouldn't have to pay for anything. So, I signed the papers and went over everything with my landlord and my mom. However, my mom was not pleased. She felt like this was just enabling them. I asked my dad why he was being so generous to Jackie and why he still referred to Jaden as his son. It baffled me. Jaden had parents who were well off, so why was my dad stepping in to take care of him? Interestingly, my mom reached out to Jaden's parents over the weekend. They were aware he was with Jackie and even had the audacity to say I was not wife material and not Dominican enough for their family. It was a strange situation, given that Jaden is Dominican while my mom is black and my dad is biracial. It felt like my dad was numb to everything happening. I hadn't felt the support I needed from him, but honestly, I had expected that. As for Jackie and Jaden, they seemed like 2 peas in a pod, and honestly, they deserved each other. In a surprising twist, I ended up hooking up with Jackie's brother, and it was a hilarious experience. We ended up talking about everything that had gone down, and I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. But the most frustrating part? Suddenly, everyone had money and support to throw around for Jackie and her baby. Where was all this help when I was struggling and trying to support her? My mom was the one who had been there for me, helping me with my budget and providing guidance. My dad had been silent throughout my struggles, and now it felt like I was invisible. No one checked on me or asked how I was feeling after discovering my boyfriend had cheated on me and my roommate had betrayed my trust. It was maddening that everyone was focused on Jackie and her pregnancy, while I was left to deal with the fallout alone. And to top it all off, I just found out Jackie's due date is in mid-April. The timing was all too convenient, and it made me question everything. It felt like a whirlwind of emotions, and I was left wondering how I had ended up in this chaotic situation. I never expected my life to take such a dramatic turn, but here I am, navigating the chaos of family dynamics and unexpected surprises. It all started when I discovered that my boyfriend and my roommate had planned a surprise for me. I was excited, thinking it might be something thoughtful or fun. However, when I walked into the living room, I was met with a mountain of baby supplies. Yes, you heard that right, baby supplies. At first, I was confused. I mean, I'm not pregnant, and I certainly didn't ask for any of this. As I stood there, my mind raced with questions. Why would they think this was a good idea? Did they really believe I would be thrilled about baby items when I wasn't even in that stage of my life? It felt like a bizarre prank, but it was all too real. As I processed the situation, I couldn't help but reflect on my own family drama. My father had recently made some questionable choices, particularly regarding his new partner. After my parents divorced, I had tried to maintain a relationship with him, but it became increasingly difficult. He had a habit of making promises that he didn't keep, and I was left feeling disappointed and hurt. In fact, he had promised to help me with my first month's rent and deposit for my new apartment. But instead of supporting me, he seemed more focused on his new partner and her child. It was as if he had forgotten about me entirely. I found myself contemplating going low to no contact with him. It was easy for me to say that from the outside looking in, but the reality was much more complicated. I had friends who encouraged me to cut ties with my father, insisting that he was toxic and that I deserved better. They pointed out that he was enabling a situation that hurt me deeply. I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. How could he support someone who had hurt me so profoundly? It was a betrayal that cut deep. As I continued to process everything, I realized that my father's choices reflected a pattern. He had cheated on my mother, and now he was seemingly siding with someone who had done the same to me. It was all too much to bear. I felt like I was living in a soap opera, where the plot twists just kept coming. One of my friends even suggested I get tested for sexually transmitted infections, just to be safe. It was a reminder of the reality I was facing, one filled with uncertainty and betrayal. I knew I needed to take care of myself and prioritize my well-being. In the midst of all this turmoil, I found solace in the support of my friends and my mother. They reminded me of my worth and encouraged me to move forward, to find someone who truly valued me. I realized that I didn't need to be tied to a family that didn't respect me or my boundaries. So, as I stood there surrounded by baby supplies, I made a decision. I would take control of my life. I would focus on healing and finding happiness on my own terms. The surprise that my boyfriend and roommate had planned might not have been what I wanted, but it served as a catalyst for change. I was ready to embrace a new chapter, one where I could prioritize myself and my future. In the end, it became clear that sometimes the biggest surprises in life can lead to the most significant transformations. And while I may have been caught off guard by the baby supplies, I was determined to rise above the chaos and create a life filled with love, respect, and happiness.